Sonny Boy is my favourite anime. As a fan of weird and cryptic movies / TV shows, this thing was right up my alley. And as a student who willingly took level 3 English in my final year of high school, I love breaking down shows like this and trying to find meaning in whatever it is that I'm watching. I'm not going to beat around the bush. This video was meant to come out like 5 weeks ago. You've probably seen this short, well, actually maybe not, but it was meant to act as a sort of teaser for this video, which, has been in the pipeline for a while. I've just been too busy with work and uni to actually make this video. But I should be able to make more videos now that I'm finished with uni. Another reason why this has taken so long is because I've never really been too happy with the actual script. So I think that this time around I'm going to approach it from a more light angle rather than being all serious and stuff. Originally I went in with no prior knowledge of the series, and by the end I was really surprised at how much I cared about the events of the story and the characters of Sonny Boy. Just in case you made it this far and don't know what Sonny Boy is exactly, let me just give a really quick and brief summary of the main plot. So basically 32 students who are in their senior year at junior high get stuck adrift in an alternate dimension where they discover that they're like static, they're stuck in time. Alongside this, each student develops mysterious powers. So that's like a basic rundown of the plot, and before I break down the themes and motifs in the video, I want to talk quickly about the art style that the show is animated in. It easily has been my favourite style. If you look here up close, it seems to be normal, but the line art isn't perfect, and I don't think it's supposed to look perfect. From distances, the animation loses line art and its only colour that is with the characters. This is probably my favourite quirk about the style of the show. We also have the use of 3D to show the undulating and trippy planes of reality shown in shots like this. I also like the fact that this series animates simple motions to make it feel like they're actually talking like real people. Unlike some animes where they'll have a close-up of characters' faces and switch between a few frames, to emulate the motion of talking. And to put it plainly, this show is very visually appealing to look at. The story of the show is simple, yet at times throughout it can feel extremely complex, and it allows for wacky setups without feeling corny, even though it's a deep show. It doesn't come across as cringy or forced for the sake of being deep as well. Honestly, I think that the show just hits every single thing that a show can hit for it to be perfect in my eyes. Yes, I consider this show to be perfect and a show that everyone needs to watch, even if you don't understand it or anything. The fact that it has 12 24-minute episodes also adds to the ease of being able to get through the story and watch it in, not too long of time. Anyway, now that that's done, I think it's time for me to dig into the meat and potatoes of the video, and the reason why I made this in the first place. The reason why I actually made this in the first place is because I wanted to, dig into something, try and figure out my own meaning in something, rather than turning to a video and listening to someone else think about or talk about what they think the themes and motifs of the show are. So basically over the rest of this video I'll be looking at the way the show explores purpose in the universe, and how different characters or groups of people find meaning in having to live their lives out in an eternal universe, and also death. But I'm not trying to be dreary and yucky about it, mainly how the show uses its characters to explore these areas. Out of our main group, I've come to the conclusion that they're split into like 2 separate groups. The ones that choose to follow Miss Aki and leave Hateno Island, and the ones that choose to follow Nagara. Distinguishing the two is important because Miss Aki's group and Nagara's group clearly oppose each other. Nagara believes in Nozomi and wants to work together with her to escape back to their home, whereas Miss Aki is more antagonistic and convinces them to leave into the wider universe and accept their lives because they can't escape. Or that's what she says. Essentially, the majority of the kids decide that it's probably safer to leave with Miss Aki than to find a way to escape, because prior to their migration, they had tried and failed in an attempt to escape, which ended with the principal, or God, telling them that it was good try, but ultimately they're stuck. This is the main reason why I'll be discussing how people find meaning when faced with the adversity of having to live as being immortal, never to age or never to die. By far my favourite example of how people found purpose is in the Tower of Babel episode, or in this case I should say a group of people. Essentially the premise here is that a large group of people get stuck in an underground tunnel, or tower, digging downward for eternity, looking for what they call heaven. The twist here is that the tower is supposedly thousands of years old, and many veterans have been stuck digging in for thousands of years. It's a pretty existential premise, but this comes as a surprise to us because it's the first sign of other life than our main class group. But also because our group of people are seemingly the first group from the school to have come to this alternate universe, which is confusing. Basically there's weird stuff going on with time here. But it's interesting to see that in adversity, these people just conformed to the rules of the tower and just started digging. In the end, there are thousands and thousands of people down here who believe that by digging downward, doing hard labor, they'll be rewarded with finding heaven and passing away. Obviously, heaven is commonly associated with being in the clouds above us or being upwards. Nagara is stuck here at one point in the show, and how does he solve the puzzle? By thinking outside of the box and doing what nobody else did, which is going upwards to the top of the tower. But this is how the group of people found their purpose. The people who ended up here were content with digging forever while holding the belief that they'd someday reach heaven. I think what's also important to note is that the Tower of Babel is essentially a metaphor of the ending of the show, just on a slightly smaller scale. I guess you could even call it a bit of foreshadowing. What do I mean by this? Well, those who live their lives in Babel are like Misaki's group of people, who eventually give up on trying to find a way back to their original lives, and Nagara in this situation represents his group, who goes against the grain and always challenging the adversity of their universe in order to overcome the challenge of leaving. And eventually they leave, much like how he did in Babel. So I guess now you can see how this foreshadows the fates of most of the characters in the show. Alright, Rajdhani is probably the smartest character in the show, and he also might be one of the most interesting, which is hard to do in a cast full of interesting and complex characters. I think that his appearance in episode 11, when he eventually returns to Hateno Island after his 2,000-year journey, helps uncover the reasons as to why only Nagara and Mizuho ended up leaving. In fact, the scenes here only confirm things that you would have guessed from earlier in the show. Essentially what I'm trying to say is that if they stay too long in this alternate dimension, then they're unable to leave, physically and mentally. Take Rajdhani for an example. He was allegedly 2,000 years old in episode 11. He could have even been older. And think about it, Rajdhani with all that knowledge just wouldn't fit in the real world. It's hard to explain, it just doesn't work. The same with Asakaze, probably one of my favourite characters. In episode 12, before Nagara and Mizuho escape, we see him at his lowest, at a point where he has no meaning anymore. He had fulfilled his purpose in killing war and saving everyone. At this point he tells us that Rajdhani has become a forest and Miss Aki left, supposedly becoming something else like Rajdhani. Well, why didn't he go along with Nagara and Mizuho? He was right there. Well, I believe that this has to do with his age. For him to have known these things about Rajdhani and Miss Aki, it would mean that he would have had to outlive them, which would make him just as old, if not older than them. Another reason I believe he can't go along with them is because he didn't take the proper means to actually get to that place in between worlds. I mean, wait, how did he even get there in the first place? Now that I think about it, he just kind of was there. I want to propose the idea that the reason Nagara and Mizuho could actually leave in the end is because they never gave up. They kept striving towards their goal, and this was their purpose all along. And I want to go a step further that say everyone achieves their purposes in the show. Nozomi, despite dying, helps guide them to the light in the form of her holdover. Asakaze kills war. Rajdhani supposedly figured out all he could to do with the universe, like he said when he set out from Hateno Island. In turn, this helped him fulfill his original goal of escaping by helping Nagara and Mizuho. Of course, Nagara and Mizuho escaped back home to the real world, which was their goal the entire show. And I think this leads on to my final point of discussion, which is death in the universe. Death can mean many things here. As Rajdhani says in the story about the inventor of death, those who are content in the outcome of their life can find peace, which is essentially becoming something else, something like Rajdhani did, becoming something static, for eternity, essentially regressing back into a state of nothingness, no longer being in a state of being. Which is poetic because it speaks to the idea that as humans we'll all eventually end up in the ground and return to nature. Yeesh, that was a bit of a tangent. Anyway, I have many theories, like the inventor of death actually became his chair as like a holdover when he died, or even the inventor of death was that dude in the wolves backstory that gave the people the diseases, or maybe that dude in that backstory was actually war. Well, for those ones to be true, they would have to be either or, because both wouldn't be possible. I think that in the end, finding meaning in eternal life comes down to the individual. We see everyone fulfill or find their purpose in some form or another, whether it's by being content with keeping yourself busy for eternity in the Tower of Babel, or finding out how to die in a world where death exists, like the inventor of death, or Rajdhani becoming a forest after essentially living out his years until he felt content with the outcome of what he had experienced. However you put it, everyone finds their purpose and they create their own meaning. There's so much more I could go on about, but I think I gotta end it here for my own sanity. The show is just so damn good. I'm sure that there are heaps of holes in everything and every theory that I've talked about here. This video has been a long time coming, and if you did enjoy it, then please do subscribe and leave a comment. Anyway, the next video is going to be a way lighter topic video. Alright, see you, Spoon.
じゃあね。